from one business owner to another. If you're a personal shopper, just go ahead and skip this video, unless you're just curious on how I came to this kind of mind-blowing decision. Well, guys, I got a huge announcement to make and share with you guys today in part one of this new series. It's mind-blowing to me, probably just as much as it's going to be mind-blowing to you. I got to say, if you've been following me, this is probably not going to be as big of a shock because you've probably already kind of started to put the puzzle together. For some of you, you're definitely going to be shocked, and it's because of that shock that I wanted to create this specific video to explain things and reaffirm with you guys that it's still me, Papa Burgundy, Mr. Doomsday. I love mechanical diesels and manual transmissions, 80s trucks. But I definitely still hate the big three. I hate emissions. I hate the prices of new vehicles. I hate the corporate greed. But I wanted to dive in and explain, okay, how did I make this decision? And so we're going to get into that. I'm going to kind of give you a cliff notes up front of here's my main reasons that I came to this decision. And then I'm going to break it down. I'll try to timestamp it in the description, so if there's one part you want to see, you can click there and navigate if you don't want to listen to me ramble on for a half hour. But I'm going to go into excruciating detail on each bullet point of how I made this decision. Because if you know me, I'm pretty OCD on things, and if you can imagine me making the decision that I'm about to share with you, you can imagine it probably shaved a couple years off my life, because I spent months researching this and trying to get everything listed out and then just talking myself into actually going through with this decision. Now, this is something I said for a long time. I will never do this in my lifetime. But with recent events and basically the stars kind of aligning, this really just seemed like the right decision to make. So without further ado, let me present to you my Dodge Ram 2025 3500 dually Cummins diesel. It's a crew cab long bed 4x4 in one of my favorite colors. Unfortunately, olive drab with black two-tone was discontinued, or I would have made it match my Arctic Cat Diesel 700, which had been sweet. The perk of going with this granite crystal is this is the same body since 2009, and it's one of their top 3 colors, which means there's a metric shit ton of replacement panels out there for me to choose from if I ever have a fender bender or rust a panel out or something. Now, as I mentioned before, I had an internal struggle and debate on whether I really wanted to share this truck with you guys, because I'm not trying to alienate you guys or lose followers, making you think I've lost my mind. I assure you, I have not lost my mind. I'm still 100% in favor of old mechanical diesel trucks. Although if I had lost my mind, would you really be able to believe me if I told you that I didn't lose my mind? Anyway, before we get into the reasons of how I decided I was going to order this truck, I just want to point out this is going to be a new video series. I'm going to make a lot of videos. I already have 7 videos in the works for this thing. Everything else is still in the works also, like the Kubota Toyota that's sitting right next to the camera right now. But I'm really trying to get a bunch of main accessories and things put on this truck right at the beginning before I start daily driving it, and then there will be some more long-term projects for it. So there's going to be a whole series dedicated to this truck. Social media-wise, I am not going to post anything about this on Facebook unless I create a product for it. And that's one of the main things I do, or how I justify buying any big piece of equipment, is I critique it and I say, hey, can I fix this problem? Can I improve this? And then I make parts and I sell them, and it helps pay off that investment. So I absolutely plan to manufacture some parts for this truck. And I already have 4 or 5 parts in my head that I'm working on right now that I think a lot of people will really like. So if I do make those products, I'll share them on Facebook. Instagram, however, my Instagram has gone stagnant. At first, between Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram was my hot social media platform. I think that was the first one where I hit 2,000 subscribers, and then it just kind of plateaued. I'm at like 22 or 2,400 right now. It's been there for like 2 years. And as stupid as this seems to me, I see like Instagram profiles, like 1993 Toyota pickup, that's the name. And all they do is post pictures of the same freaking vehicle over and over and over. And they have like 30,000 subscribers. So I don't think I have anything to lose. I'll still be posting my doomsday ads on my Instagram, but I'm going to just post pictures of this truck. What do I have to lose? So if you just want to check out pictures of the truck in different settings, give me a follow. It's Doomsday Diesel on Instagram. Cheap plug. And now that I have this truck back home and got it back from the dealership, I just want to point out I'm not letting this cut into Doomsday time. I'm still working sun up to sundown pretty much on Doomsday, and then at the late hours of the night is when I'm working on the truck, trying to get some accessories put on it so I can protect it before, I live on gravel roads and everything gets beat up pretty quickly out here. So actually just the first 2 miles on gravel coming home, I already had like 5 paint chips on the fenders. So I'm kind of working on that right now. And then, like I said, I'll do some more long-term projects. There's a lot of parts that are back ordered that I'm waiting on indefinitely. And some things, the electronics haven't been verified to work with the new 2025's electronics yet that I'm waiting on. Some of the videos that you'll be seeing coming up here shortly. Number one, this is the first ever oil filter update they've done to a Cummins 89 through 24. Same oil filter that whole entire time. And this year, for the first time ever, they made an oil filter change. So I'm going to show you how to change the oil on this new 2025. That'll be coming next. And then we're going to do things like my interior modifications, some exterior modifications. I'm going to be attempting to tow about 40,000 pounds gross combined weight with hay. So definitely looking forward to that. And just, modifications you might want to make right off the bat, help you out, explain some of the options on these things to you so you are making an informed decision and you're getting the best benefit from your money. So without further ado, let's dive in, and I'm going to list out kind of my bullet points here on how I came to the decision that I was going to buy a brand new truck in 2025 with emissions. All right. So, first of all, I needed a different truck. It was a need, not a want. Moving parts around for Doomsday as I get bigger parts and more inventory. I find a long bed truck is really a necessity. And I've always had these short bed trucks or little Toyotas, and I could only ever fit one pallet. Pallet's about 40 inches wide by 48 or 4 feet long, and you can only fit one in a short bed truck. And so I needed to find a way to be able to haul two, because making one trip instead of 2 trips is a really big thing when you're going 180 miles in one shot. So it's been on my list for 2.5 years to get a bigger truck for Doomsday and for some towing needs. And then last September, spanning all the way through January, I ruptured 2 discs in my back. There's 2 weeks where I literally struggled to stand up out of a chair. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not joking. It was everything I could do just to stand up out of a chair. It hurt that much. And during that time, I missed a lot of work. I got really far behind with Doomsday Diesel, and I just sat there and I started thinking, what do I do every day? How do I do it? What tools do I use to do it? And what can I change? If it's just a process, how can I change that process? If it's equipment, what can I buy to improve? Firewood, Now, instead of lifting it by hand and throwing it in a trailer, I'm using the skid steer with the grapple on it. That's a huge benefit. And eventually I looked at my my vehicle. You know, I'm always bouncing down the road. That black slammed Toyota Tacoma with the gold wheels probably did a lot of damage to my back. That thing, when I put that lowering kit on it, it rode like a cloud for about a month. And I'm guessing I blew the shocks out on it because it was horrible. And I drove that thing for way too long. But I needed to get a better riding truck because I'm no good to you guys if I'm stuck in a chair and can't move. So definitely needed to get into a better riding truck. Looking at used trucks, obviously, that's been my lifetime thing is just, you know, I'm always going to buy a cheap used truck. Well, used trucks are starting to dry up. There's less of them. Prices are going way up. And there's more people in the world. If you look at the global population from 1990 versus 2024, there's a lot more people and people need vehicles. And so the supply and demand has changed. There's the same number of old trucks, but there's more people who need vehicles. So I was really lacking the options for finding a good used truck to suit my purposes. Now, the only reason I could justify buying a new truck is because this is for my business. So I can write this off for my taxes. I would never buy a new truck just for me personally because you're paying for it 100%. That price that you pay at the dealership, I get to write that off. So really, in the end, it's not how much I'm paying because I'm saving on income taxes. Now, it's not that I'm making so much I need to go out and buy a new truck. Your options are you can write it off all at once in that first year, or you can write it off over 5 years. And so that's what I'll be doing because I really haven't, since I bought all my tools and got my shop up, I really haven't been buying anything in that sense. I've been putting it all into inventory or research and development, and this is going to help kind of reduce that burden of having to keep building up inventory because that's what I've been doing these last couple of years. And I've got so much inventory, I can't hardly walk through the shop right now. So it'll be nice to be able to have this asset and be able to write this off. And I encourage you, if you have a business, you know, this is really the main reason you should be looking at a new vehicle as an option. For you personally, I would 110% not recommend a new vehicle. Just stick with the used stuff. We're going to talk about why I chose Dodge. And yeah, I'm not calling it Ram. I'm calling it Dodge. And if you don't like that, well, tough. It's my truck and I can call it what I want. So I went with Dodge over Ford, Chevy, International. There's a lot of dishonest brands. There's a movie you guys should watch. It's called Flash of Genius. It's about a guy who invented the intermittent windshield wiper. And small guy like me, just trying to invent stuff, trying to find his big break, trying to improve the quality of life for people. And he comes up with the intermittent windshield wiper and he gets a patent on it. And then he goes to Ford and he says, hey, would you guys like to use my product on your new vehicles? And they said, we're going to look at it. We're not interested. And he's got a patent on it. But he learned, just as I've learned, if you can't financially afford to protect your patent, then it's really a worthless patent. And so Ford just went out and said, this guy's not going to be able to defend his patent. We're just going to use his product. And he spent his whole life fighting Ford, lost his wife, got divorced, and eventually died a really early death because of all the stress it induced on him. So I will never buy anything from Ford, period. I don't care if they do make the best truck. Right now, they probably do have one of the, it's arguable. It might be the better truck, but it's just a moral and ethical thing. I will never buy anything from Ford. And GM was in on the end of that too, but I think they saw a guy not being able to fight Ford, And they said, well, if he can't beat Ford, then there's no reason that we can't get in on this too. So shame on GM, Chevy. It's just as bad, but it's called Flash of Genius. Put that in the description. You definitely need to watch that. There's also the main point that all other options in 2025 are hot garbage. I mean, everything out there. I mean, the 10-speed Duramax, you know, Allison made GM what they are with the Allison 1000. And then they get to this point and they just kind of slap them in the face and they say, hey, thanks for nothing. We can do it better. Like their 4L60, you know? They come out with this 10-speed and it's an absolute piece of crap. There's a lot of rumors going around that they were going to go to the Allison 9-speed. Well, if you haven't looked at the Allison 9-speed, it's still the Allison 6-speed. It's like they took different combinations of their planetaries to create those extra 3 gears. And they're stupid gears. I mean, one of them is a final overdrive of like 0.51 to 1. Who needs an overdrive of half? When are you ever going to use that? Honestly, the ratios in the original 6-speed kind of suck. I'm daily driving my black LBZ Duramax right now while I'm filming this video, and 3rd to 4th and 4th to 5th gear splits suck. So anyway, I'm starting to digress, but everything else out there option-wise, brand new, is hot garbage. And so we'll get into that very deep. I'm going to go over all the options out there later on in the video. Now, what captured my eye on this truck is the new 8-speed, because I've said forever, somewhere between like a 7 or 8-speed with the right gear ratios and gear splits would be probably the perfect automatic, because 6 is not quite enough, 10 is way too many, but it all depends on your gearing. It's not just like, boom, there's an 8-speed, it's perfect. Is this the perfect 8-speed? We'll talk about that more in the end of the video. That was the only reason I really started looking at this truck, though, and really considering, like, I got really excited when I found out, oh, there's an 8-speed Cummins coming. Up to that point, I wasn't looking at new. I was still looking at used, and then I heard about the 8-speed, and that's really what got me interested enough to start looking at the truck. And I got the truck parked directly behind the camera, so I keep looking at that. 2027 emissions were coming, so that was something that drove me to make a decision in 25 or 26, because they said, and don't quote me on my numbers because I know they're not right, but something like they wanted another 80% reduction in emissions starting in 27. So you're going to have like 3 DPFs. There's also going to be a mandated warranty for emissions equipment from all truck manufacturers. And it was based off of, I think it was based off the weight, or the weight of the vehicle or something. Boiled down to pickups, we'll just call them. They were going to have basically a 200,000 mile warranty. And so the manufacturer already came out and said point blank, we're not going to pay for that. The customer's going to pay for it, because we can already statistically say, you know, let's say this equipment's going to need to be replaced 2 to 3 times in 200,000 miles. Like, we know it. We know it's going to need to be replaced, so we're going to take that cost and factor that into the final sale price. The customer's going to pay for the warranty. So I didn't want any part of that. You already can't smell the tailpipe emissions. There's nothing visible coming out. I don't know why. Anyway, long story short, Trump's already come out and said, okay, we're going to probably roll back to 2020 emissions, but that wasn't said before I ordered this. So I knew I wanted probably a 26, but then going into my last reason here, the April 1st tariffs were announced, 25% on these trucks. These trucks, the engine is made in Indiana, which is nice. But the funny thing is, Ford's diesel is made in Mexico. Then flipping it around, the Dodge truck is made in Saltillo, Mexico. And I'm like, wow, 25% increase on an already outrageously overpriced truck. That's not going to happen. And so I ran out. March 31st, I was scrambling. I'm losing sleep trying to make my decision because taking that tariff stuff seriously. And so that's what really drove the purchase decision at the end. Was I was actually planning on waiting until 2026, and that April 1st thing really kind of pushed this to where I had to make a decision. So those are the cliff note reasons why I decided on this. I couldn't find anything used in 2.5 years that really fit my needs. Everything's rusted out, super high miles. The only thing that I could find was basically $36,000 to $40,000 in that range for what I boiled it down to was a 2006 or 7 LBZ Duramax crew cab dually, because I have a short bed 3/4 ton, and I just don't have the capacity with that truck for towing this 40-foot trailer and towing the skid steer with the mulcher any distance. I can use the F700, but this fly is driving me nuts. I can't tow any real distance in the F700. That thing, after I sold my Dodge Charger, the F700 became the daily driver for a while, and that proved to be really, really hard on my back. So that's why that truck's kind of just special use only now. It's mainly used for hauling scrap. So at this point, I'd like to dive in deep and give you a full breakdown on each one of these bullet points. So I needed a different truck. Again, it's a need, not a want. I have plenty of trucks to choose from to get a job done, but none of them are really like the perfect truck. So I'd mentioned I need an 8-foot bed so I can haul 2 pallets. The other part of the need is I need a truck to haul family and friends on these long trips. I've been going to Toyota Jamboree these last couple of years. Now we're going to start trying to do trips either somewhere in Arkansas and or Moab, and then there's SEMA in Vegas. And so these are all like 15 to 20 hour drives. And so need something comfortable, and then you add in the long bed over the short bed for that, because if you have 4 people in the truck, you're going to need somewhere for all their baggage. And so having that slot, that extra space in the front of the bed for everyone's luggage, that's a good thing to have there. So that's the other part of the need, is being able to have a comfortable long distance commuter. So as I'm looking last year, sold the gray LBC Duramax. That was another short bed, same as my black. It was just twice the miles and all rusted out. That thing had all the power I really needed, but I needed a long bed, and when I tried to tow the skid steer, it was really pushed past its limits. And really, power is not what I was after. Is more braking and suspension. That lacked both. So in the meantime, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out what vehicle do I really want. And so I got into a 2nd gen 24 valve Cummins long bed and realized, yes, absolutely need the long bed. Now the back injury, I don't think that really needs a whole lot of explanation. I'll just mention the ride quality of trucks. So I'm going to kind of blend this in with all the trucks I looked at, okay, which is my next bullet point. 2nd gen Cummins, they ride okay, but not great. My F700 rides super rough, and I actually looked at more of like the F700, F800 class of trucks. Just way too rough riding. LBZ Duramaxes, they ride really nice. The International MXT, I've never even seen one in real life, so I don't know how it rides. But Kodiak, I don't believe I've ridden in one of those, but I've heard they're not the smoothest. Probably going to need to upgrade the suspension. Then I looked at the new Duramax, and for being an independent front suspension, that thing rode so freaking rough, I couldn't believe it. And then I went and found out about I was looking at, the Kodiak, and it's like, well, what's the new version of the Kodiak? Found out International has this deal. It's like a joint venture with GM, but it's more of an international truck. They're using the Silverado cab and Duramax, but they're using an Allison 1700 transmission, which is basically the old Allison 6-speed 1000. Same ratios, just heavier duty. And so I went and test drove one of those. You probably saw my post about it on social media last year. That thing rode so rough. And if you're looking at my F700, that was designed around 1986. You're talking almost 40 years difference. And these new Silverado 4500s ride rougher than the old Fords, and they have less payload capacity. It's pathetic. It's mind-blowing. Yeah, they have more power. I've never complained about the brakes on mine. Not at all. So yeah, you get more power and a rougher ride and less payload capacity. Like, what a joke. And people will sit there and justify the rough ride because they bought this $90,000 truck and it rides like a covered wagon, and they don't want to feel bad about it. So they'll tell you, oh, it's a big truck. It's a medium duty truck. It's meant to haul 26,000 pounds. So yeah, it's meant to ride rough. No, hop in my F700 and tell me that. It rides rough for my back, but most people would say, wow, this thing rides really good. I didn't look at the Ford. My stepdad has owned two dualies, 2018 and 2023, and holy crap, those things ride rough. Unloaded, put a trailer on it, it's not that bad, but for daily driving, I actually rode in it with my back injury. We had to go somewhere, hit a pothole, and I thought I was going to pass out from the pain. That's how rough the Fords ride. And then I hopped in a Dodge, a 2024. Granted, you got to realize this is the same heavy duty 3500, 2500 from 2010 to 2025. It's the same chassis. It's the same body. The only difference is the headlights and basically the front clip, so the hood and the fenders. And then obviously the engine transmission. But it's the same body chassis since 2010. Something about Stellantis, 2019 was going to be this new truck with the 8-speed. You can actually find videos on YouTube back in 2017 of them test driving the 8-speed. But then CEOs changed and it just got drug out. So supposedly the new body style and everything is coming in 2027. For now, 25, 26, it's just going to be a redesigned front clip and still same body. And so I was confident in going around and test driving 24s to get a good feel if I like the truck or not. And I couldn't believe how smooth the 2024 dually rode, just in stock form. And I test drove one with stock suspension, one with factory rear air suspension or rear air assist. It's leaf springs with airbags. And so I was planning on getting that, and then they ripped that option away from us. But we'll talk about that in a future video about options. Both of them rode great though, compared to everything else. And actually now that I'm driving this new truck and my LBZ, this actually rides smoother. Maybe it's because it's brand new, but I have a lot of money and a lot of suspension parts in my LBZ, and this thing stock still rides better. So yeah, I think I'm doing loads of good deeds for my back in the long term with this truck. So if you have body problems, you're doing a tough physical job like I am day to day, definitely consider getting into a vehicle. If you're putting a lot of miles, you don't even have to put that many miles on, because having a harsh ride, if it's harsh enough, it doesn't take a whole lot of miles to do a lot of damage to your back. It's irreversible. So definitely take that seriously. I think I'm gonna save the big one for last, and that's going through every single vehicle that I looked at, because we can probably skip through. I got my notes sheet right here. I think we can blow through some of these other points a little bit quicker. Again, I think I already explained it well enough, but the tax write-off, if it's a business purchase, then yeah, that's how I would justify being able to actually get a brand new truck. If it's for personal use, I just can't see a scenario where you need a brand new truck for personal use. Like, I'm thinking of what I use my truck for personally, running around, running errands, getting groceries. Like, why would a used truck not work for that? Anything big, hauling anything big, that's going to be business. Now, the exception would be if you're like an RVer and you're constantly toting that big thing around. But anything else should if you're hauling heavy equipment around, how is that not going to be a business use? So I would really, I guess I need to say at the beginning of this video, this is from one business owner to another. If you're a personal shopper, just go ahead and skip this video, unless you're just curious on how I came to this kind of mind-blowing decision. Now, I talked about I'll never get a Ford because they screwed the guy over for the intermittent windshield wipers. So this guy spent his whole life in court trying to fight Ford. And he finally got in front of a jury, and they gave him a boatload of money, and then he died because it put so much stress on him that he cut his life short, and he lost his marriage over the deal. And Ford and GM were both found guilty. And I just, that kind of evil and greed is enough for me to wish that they go bankrupt and go out of business, because it's evil. I don't think they deserve to be in business after that deal. If you're going to steal from people who did their own hard work and they're just trying to help you out by having you put their nice product in your vehicle, and you want to ruin their entire life, I don't think you should be in business. The Cummins 8-speed. So do I think it's the perfect transmission? No. There's three different gear splits, rather, that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. I would really like to speak with the engineers who design the gear ratios. But on top of that, they changed the ring and pinion on this to a 342 only. It's across the board from a dually, which has a 31.8-inch tire, all the way up to like the Limited, which has like a 33.5-inch tire, which is basically a 34. They have the same ring and pinion ratio, and so driving a single rear wheel truck with a taller tire feels way more sluggish and more doggy than this dually with the short tires. I had planned, I basically had my truck all spec'd out in 2024. I had the rear air assist, 410 gears. And then you come to 2025 and time to order, and you can't change your ring and pinion ratio. And that alone is almost enough. If 2027s come out and I like the body style, and I need to make a point on that too. 2027s come out and I like them, and we get ring and pinion ratio options again, that might be enough for me to upgrade, because it's $4,000 to change the ring and pinion on this massive 12-inch rear axle plus the solid axle up front. It's because that rear costs so much. The front's been around forever, but that new 12-inch rear axle costs a ton. It's like $1,300 just for the ring and pinion kit. Now, if you go back to 2024 and you're ordering and you wanted to go up to 410 from 373, it's a $145 difference. So now it's $4,000 instead of $145, plus a factory ring and pinion setup, so precise compared to a shop doing it. That's going to be a really big factor. And if I keep this truck long term, I'm treating it like it's going to be my forever truck. I'm doing everything right from the beginning while it's still brand new to protect it. I never mention it, but looks was another really important factor. Up until now, I thought Dodges, like after the second gen, we got that 03 to 05. I thought those trucks looked okay, but then they came out with like the giant bulbous bug looking headlights, and ever since I've thought Dodges were fugly. And honestly, I think that about almost all new trucks. Fords from like 18 to 23, roughly, I thought looked okay. But when this 25 came out with their official pictures, I'm like, whoa, those things look sweet. Obviously, looks are everyone's own personal preference. But for me personally, I thought all the new trucks were fugly until this 25 Dodge came out. And that's going to be a big if. In the 27s, are they going to look better? Or are they going to go back to looking like pretty much every other Dodge? The emissions thing, basically 27, they were going to start trying to force diesels out. And with all the Big Brother stuff coming in 2027, I thought, this is going to be it. This is kind of like the LBZ Duramax. We knew we were getting the LBZ for the last time that diesels would not have emissions because DPFs were coming in the second half of 2007. It's kind of how this was lining up until Trump apparently is now changing it. But 2027, more emissions crap's coming out. And I joked about how they're going to have so many emissions, you're going to have to go to the end of the truck and you're going to have to do a 180 with your exhaust and start routing it back to the front again because you're going to run out of room. This thing, if you crawl under it, that emission system goes all the way to the rear axle. And this is a crew cab long bed. So I can only imagine what the short bed trucks look like. The April 1st tariffs, is kind of a cruel joke because actually since I ordered, MSRP on this truck dropped $700. And nobody's been able to explain that one to me why. I can't imagine why it'd be dropping. There was really, in the end, there was no reason to rush, but I did. Because if you're going to put 25% on top, it's not going to be an option anymore. It's not going to make any sense. So the tariff deal, that's what really kind of forced my hand to make a decision. Otherwise, I was fully planning to wait till the 2026 models came out and we had, full feedback on the new 8-speed, the new engine, because it's a brand new engine and a brand new new transmission for the truck. This transmission's actually been out in medium duty trucks. It's, like I said, that you can go back to 2017 and find YouTube videos of Dodge already testing this in trucks way back then. So they have lots of testing time. I can't believe they waited till 2025 to actually put it out. But the fact that they killed both 6-speed options and then came out with this, and that's your sole option, it tells me they put plenty of miles behind their test rigs that they're fully confident this is gonna work. If I was you, though, I would still wait. So actually, as of May 1st, they started sending emails out saying 2026 orders are going to, 2026 model year trucks, the orders are going to come out any day now. May 31st is the last day to put a custom order in for a 2025 model year. So by the time you're watching this, you can't go to your dealership and custom order a 25 anymore. It would be a 26. And I don't know if that's been opened up yet or not. And of course, we're not going to know, is anything really changing? It sounds like basically 25 was just going to be 3 or 4 colors, paint colors. And so 26 is going to get all the weird colors. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why Dodge can't paint different colors all of a sudden. And so now this is probably going to be the real meat and potatoes of this whole video is what did I go through? What was my process and what did I all look at and consider before deciding, man, 25 Cummins is really what I need. So first and foremost, I started looking at another LBZ Duramax because like I said, I've had several of them. I still have my first one, which is my good truck, but it's a crew cab short bed 3/4 ton. I know from having jumped in the 24 valve that I needed a long bed. From the 40-foot trailer, that sucker weighs over 9,000 pounds empty, basically just having the trailer on it. It's already like squatting and at capacity almost. So I wanted a dually, and I thought if I go to a long bed dually LBZ, that'd be great. But I couldn't justify buying one until I sold some of my bigger project vehicles. And I'm going to do a video on how I was able to actually afford buying this truck, because it, believe it or not, it did not come from Doomsday Diesel. It came from a side project I've been working on to make money for future vehicle purchases. And so I'm going to save that and table that, but that'll be another video of its own. But anyway, I had to wait till I sold another project vehicle to be able to afford this LBZ dually I was looking at, and it was on Marketplace for over 6 months. And I think it was within 2 weeks before I sold a big Army van, and like within 2 weeks before that dang dually sold, and that was probably the best option I found. It was perfect color, had all the options on it that I wanted. It was down in Kansas City. It looked really clean, and it sold. And I never found anything again that was even remotely close to what I needed, because I wanted something clean, straight, not wrecked. That's actually a big one. If you look on Carfax, you can look up wreck history. This thing was clean. That was the last one that I found that was realistic. I could actually afford it, and I think it sold for $18,000, and that was it. After that, everything was well over $30,000 that I was able to find. Actually, I bought that gray 3/4 ton just in the interim because I couldn't find a dually anywhere. And I love that truck, but it wasn't the right configuration of truck I needed. I exhausted my efforts trying to find another LBZ. I mean, I had Auto Trader and Marketplace pulled up, and I would literally hit refresh 20 times a day trying to find a listing on Auto Trader. That's actually how I found my black LBZ. I was at work, had my search pulled up for a black or a gray 06, 07 LBZ, and I would just sit there and hit refresh, and it got ridiculous. Like, I became obsessed with it, but that's how I found it, because within 10 minutes of someone posting my black one, they put the listing up before they had the pictures posted, because it still had to go through detailing. And I emailed them and I said, hey, I don't care how it looks. I'll clean it myself. Send me some pictures, and boom, it was sold. I'm like, I'll be there this weekend to pick it up. And so I know that's how you get the good deals. So 2.5 years, I'm sitting here scrolling through Marketplace and refreshing Auto Trader. I just can't find what I'm looking for. So I broadened my search. So here, I'm going to tell you every other vehicle I looked at. So sticking with LBZ, I actually looked at the Express vans, because you could get those with a Duramax for a while. But they had the 4L85, which is like the hopped up 4L80. They're really loud to drive around on gravel roads. They're actually pretty rough, and decided against it. They don't get great mileage, and the towing, obviously I can't pull the gooseneck, so that was out. I looked at the Kodiaks. There's a couple things about Kodiaks. The 4-wheel drive models had a weird Dana Super 70 front axle. It only had a 513 ring and pinion ratio, and there's no aftermarket ratios that were ever offered for that. So the only way to get your RPM down is to go to a massive tire, like you see in the movie Transformers with Ironhide. And I wanted to get a Kodiak and do an Ironhide build, but it's not realistic for moving parts around. And if you kept smaller tires on it, you're keeping that engine wrapped out constantly. And so those engines only live about 100,000 miles, and the crankshafts fail. So I found out, obviously the Kodiak is actually the Express van body or cab. They did a really awkward cut behind the back seat, put the terrible looking back window in it, and then obviously they have the forward flipping front hood, but it's made with like Express express van parts. And outside of like the cab, the minimal cab parts that cross over to the express, all those parts are becoming really hard to find and really expensive or just no longer available. So, and a lot of them have higher miles and they're expensive when you find them and they're what you want. So that was out. Then I looked at the equivalent, the international equivalent, which would be the International MXT. Is just like a bitchin' truck when you really look at it. But they totally shot themselves in the foot by putting the 6.0 power joke in it. It had the Allison 1000 6-speed, but they should have used a DT 466 or at least a DT 360, but they used a 6.0 power joke with all the same problems. I didn't want to buy a truck and have a project. I wanted to buy a truck and hop in it and go. You know, relatively speaking, obviously I'm doing some accessories on this one, but doing an engine swap is not something I want to do. So I looked at them. I entertained the idea. They were $75,000, 20 years old, $75,000, and most of them are like super janky looking, like they're all flat black, rattle canned or something. Definitely not 75. They were 75,000 new back then, and now they have a ton of miles on them, and they're asking the same. So that was out. So then I went back older, started looking at second gen Dodges, 12 valve NV 4500. Thought, man, that would be sweet because I've always missed my 94. Couldn't find one, still can't find one. I think those don't exist anymore. 12 valve, 4-wheel drive, 5-speed. Impossible to find, and if you do, they want, you know, their weight in gold. But I found this 24 valve, this 02 that I still have with the snowplow, and I thought, you know what, it's cheap enough. Paid $4,000 for it. The snowplow and the tires are worth most of that, so I took that risk. It bit me in the butt. I've already replaced the injection pump, lift pump. I thought this would be a good test to see, is this extended cab really big enough? Because I'm pretty sure I need a crew cab. It doesn't ride that bad, but it's pretty bad. And the extended cab's definitely not going to work. So it's just too small. So for the Dodge, the extended cab, you know, long distance commuter and 4 people, I grew up in one of these, all right? When I was 7 years old, it was painful being back there. So I just kind of reconfirmed with myself, no, a second gen's not going to work. Then I looked at, like I said, the F700, F800, probably the coolest truck ever built that you could factory order. You could get a Ford medium duty crew cab, 4-wheel drive, 8.3 6CT Cummins, the Allison 6-speed 3000 series, the dual overdrives, air conditioning, air brakes if you wanted it. Can't find that truck anywhere. I looked and I looked and I looked and I found a post on Pirate 4x4. A guy was trying to sell it back in around 2020, and I messaged him and messaged him and messaged him and couldn't get a hold of him. The only thing I'll say is they're probably going to ride rough. I probably would have had to have done some air suspension mods to it. To me, that would have been one of the coolest trucks. It'd been a little big for daily driving, but for the long distance stuff, it would have been sweet. I can't believe more people didn't buy those back in the 90s and made just big pickups out of them, though. Sorry, my battery died there. Looking forward to 2027, supposedly we're going to get the 7.2 liter Cummins in medium duty trucks. So we'll see who picks up on that. I 110% do not expect that to go into a 25 or 3500 truck, but if Dodge is smart, they'll put it in their 4500 and make an F450 killer. That was going to be a huge project, and I actually own an F800, and the only problem is it's regular cab. It's not a crew cab. And again, I don't want a project for this vehicle right now. I need something I can buy and drive. And so I have the F800 crane truck. That's a 6CT Allison 6-speed. Basically, I bought that with the hope of someday making kind of that style of truck or I don't know. But for now, I'm just using the crane to move parts around. So that was everything used that I thought was a good fit. So I moved up to looking at, okay, what's out there for new stuff, all right? If I'm gonna go new, I want the best brakes, because that's the one thing that really sucks on the LBZ Duramax. And I think I might just make a video later on comparing the LBZ Duramax to the 25 Cummins, because I've always said the LBZ is the best new diesel that you can buy. I've never seen anything better than it, but this truck really wins in a lot of categories. It's also funny to me, just thinking about it right now, you know, your Volkswagen TDI, your AHU, ALH, BHW, your Duramaxes, your LB7, LLY, LBZ. They all have these convenient acronyms, and then you get to the Cummins, and it's just, oh, the Cummins. So you have the VE pump, the P pump, the 24 valve, and then you have stupid people that want to call everything a 24 valve all the way up to 2025. You get the common rail, the 5.9, and then it's the 6.7. I wish we had acronyms for the Cummins. By the way, this is still a 4th gen. It's still the same cab, same body as a 2009. It's still 4th gen. I'd call it generation 4.3 probably, or 4.4, but not a 5th gen. It's definitely not a 6th gen. Generation's not defined by engine or transmission, because with that logic, 2nd gen would be 94 to 98, and then 3rd gen would be 98.5 to 02, because they got a different engine. So you can't sit there and say, oh, we got different engines, so it's the 6th gen. Not true. That totally contradicts how we've been naming the generations up to this point. But anyway, looking at all the new options, well, this is kind of a can of worms here. Chevy doesn't break 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. If I'm getting a new truck, it's got to be over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, just for bragging rights. I think they're at $975. Overpriced as hell, and road super rough. So they're out. Looked at the Silverado 4500. So basically it's like my LBZ with 200 more foot-pounds of torque, because I believe it's 360 horse, so the exact same, and 850 foot-pounds of torque. So exactly 200 foot-pounds more than the LBZ. I tell you, I hopped in that thing, my LBZ felt so much quicker. And obviously you have a lot more weight in the 4500. I researched the hell out of that truck and found out that's actually super detuned. It was only making 200 some horsepower stock in some cases at the wheels. That's how much detuning they had, and like 400 or 500 something foot-pounds of torque. And so to fix the power problem, you had to swap the L5P turbo and injectors in, and ECU, and at that point you're losing your warranty. And then you had L5P power, and they're nuts. But the brake components are super expensive to replace on those things. It's like $500 for a caliper. And then the ride just sucks so freaking bad. And like I said, it's the same Allison 6-speed ratios. It's just a beefed up Allison 1000. So your 3rd to 4th and 5th to 6th gear splits still suck. From 4th gear to 5th gear, you drop so many RPM, you just fall on your face. And so I was looking at this crazy idea of buying a new axle, a new Dana. It uses a Dana 60 front axle, and I found out, went to the dealership and measured everything. I could pull that out and put that in a Kodiak so that I have ring and pinion options, and I could re-gear the Kodiak. And that was a pipe dream, and that became another big project. You know, I'm gonna have to build this whole Kodiak. So maybe down the road, just for fun, I'll build a Kodiak, put the 6 CT Cummins in it, and put a Silverado 4500 front axle in it. But no, that would definitely be a project. The Silverado 4500, if you can find one to go test drive, go punish yourself for fun. I know that sounds weird, but go for fun, just go punish yourself and drive one and see how bad of a ride $90,000 can buy you, because it is atrocious. Like, it is pathetic. Why do they not have some type of better suspension on these things in 2025? It's mind-blowing. I can't wait to see what they come out with next, because it can't be anything worse. Like, they have set the bottom of the totem pole. Like, you can't go below a Silverado 4500 for ride quality. It's terrible. And the tow ratings actually suck too. If you're going to pull a trailer, tow ratings sucked. And the turbo brake really wasn't doing it for me on those. So really everything about GM products just totally out the window. So Ford's 10 speeds is too much. Yeah, you get the most power. The transmission shifting is really smooth. Getting up to speed, no problem. The transmission shift programming, when you're trying to slow down, sucks. It doesn't drop enough gears. Like, it'll go 10, 9, 8, 7. It should be going like 10, 7, 5, 3. It's not a big enough jump, and so that doesn't utilize the turbo brake. And I really don't care for the turbo brake on those. It should be audible. That's the thing I love on the Cummins. You can hear the turbo brake. You can't hear the truck or the exhaust, but you turn that turbo brake on, boom, you know it's working. The Ford, it's just not aggressive enough. I didn't think the braking was enough of an upgrade on those trucks. And then you get into the Dodge. And so I'm looking at 2024s. Actually, what got me even kind of looking at all at new vehicles was I saw apparently Dodge, Stellantis is tinkering around with bankruptcy, and they can't sell these 2024s. And so I start looking into them, and they got their standard output and their high output. And before I break into this is going to be the end of the video. So this is going to be my last point. You had your standard output, and again, it's not really a power upgrade from the LBZ. It was like 385 horse or somewhere around there. And again, I think it was like 850 foot-pounds of torque. Something kind of pathetic. Not enough to justify new truck price. And then I had to laugh because I'm looking at 2024s, and they still have this piece of crap 68 RFE. In 2024, I'm like, how long has this piece of garbage been in these trucks? Like, guys are swapping 48 REs in place of the 68 RFE. And you have to basically take a brand new truck in and get like a $7,000 transmission build done to make it live. And then I find out about there's like a $7,000 flat tappet conversion because they went to these hydraulic roller lifters. You had problems with the grid heater for the intake system. Fuel filters are in a horrible location. Really didn't care for the front ends. You can get some aftermarket lights that make them look pretty cool. But if you set all that stuff aside, you could build a tradesman and get like every option that I wanted. You could get vinyl floors, manual shift transfer case with heated seats. I'm like, oh my God, and rear assist and rear air suspension. And I noticed this thing still uses the same shift knob that I make parts for. And I thought, man, it would be so cool to order a new truck and go in to pick it up and thread on my shift knob. Like, that'd be sweet. Like, I make a part for a 2024 Dodge Cummins truck. That's pretty badass. And then that always takes me back to that King of the Hill episode where Hank's truck is breaking down and ends up stalling out on the railroad tracks, and a train wipes the truck out, and then he has to go. I don't know if he was going from a Ford Ranger to an F-150, or actually it looked like a Super Duty. He takes the old shift knob and puts it on the new shift stick in the new truck. And I always thought, oh, it'd be cool to put my shift knob in the 2024 or 25. And then 25, they killed the final floor option, the manual shift transfer case option, the rear air suspension option. And so, like, building out a 2024 on the website, I thought, man, if 25 is just a front end change and different engine, I'm going to have like the perfect tradesman cheap truck. And then they effed everything up. That was the standard output for 24. Would not buy that. because you're going to have $14,000 in it up front just to make it reliable. Then I'm looking at the high output. So it's 420 horsepower, 1,075 foot-pounds of torque. Now we're talking. The Aisin 6-speed, which is like a medium-duty style transmission. So I went and test drove both, the standard output and the high output. And the 68 RFE, I mean, it's buttery smooth shifts. Don't get me wrong, it's smooth. It's like the same crappy gear ratios as Allison 1000 6-speed. Slightly better, but basically the same crappy gear spread as Allison. The Aisin, on the other hand, has the best gear splits of any 6-speed heavy-duty pickup that I've seen to date. They are as close to ideal as I think you'll probably ever find. And driving it, the way I would describe it, if you've ever driven a 5-ton 6x6 military truck, those have the, what is that? That's the Allison 545 or something like that. Felt just like that. Clunky shifts from first to second, like the first 2 or 3 gears and your torque converter lockup. That was all really clunky. You really felt it. You felt like you were in a big medium duty truck. I didn't mind it, but at the same time, if I'm daily driving this, that's going to get really old. Gear splits were awesome. Turbo brake was awesome. You had the gear splits really help both directions, upshifting and downshifting, and they were beautiful when you were trying to slow down. And I thought, you know, I could probably live with one of these trucks, but you still have the flat tappet problem, fuel filter location problem. And apparently this transmission really lugs it down out of its power range, like down to 1,000 RPM, and you're falling on your face. And this transmission's been out for what, like 15 years? And I didn't find this out until I had already ordered my new truck, that they just cracked. I think Corey Willis is the one who cracked this transmission, and now they can finally tune it. And it's like, and they're not bending people over a barrel either. It's like $300 to get the transmission tuning for the Aisin. Totally transforms it. And I reached out to them. I didn't get a real clear or honest answer because they told me all they did was change shift points. But then in some videos I'm seeing they're changing line pressures and other things, but they're basically making it shift like it should have this entire time. And it's like a night and day difference driving an Aisin truck with Corey Willis's transmission tuning. So had I known about that, I would have considered that. And if you find a cheap 2024 still on a lot somewhere with the Aisin, keep that in mind. $300 for the transmission tuning. But then the emissions, the 19 through 24's emissions sucked. So they basically dumped fuel in through the injectors into the 5th and 6th cylinders to bring EGTs up to get your emissions system hot enough. So you're washing down your last 2 cylinders. So you're going to have diesel end up in your oil. 5th and 6th cylinders are going to die an early death. And so that stuff would have to go in the garbage if it were me. 25, on the other hand, they reoriented everything. Now they have emissions starting right off the turbocharger, so you get the heat right off the turbo. No more dumping fuel in through the injectors. Now they have an injector in the DPF, and I don't know where the hell I've been. I thought that's how they were doing it this whole time. I don't know if I was looking at Duramaxes maybe. Honestly, I didn't really care about it. I just remember back in 2007, I heard, oh, now they're going to add an injector for the DPF. And I thought, wow, how stupid is that? We're going to literally dump fuel into our exhaust. Like, how much less fuel efficient can you be than literally dumping it out the exhaust? So that's what they're doing. That makes way more sense to me than dumping it into your cylinders and washing those down. So anyway, I thought, okay, I could probably live with a high output. I'll look around. And now I'm looking at, these trucks are 70 to 80,000 MSRP. That's freaking nuts. And so I'm looking around, they start having $20,000 off. I found a dually, crew cab 4x4, long bed dually with heated seats, manual shift transfer case, $49,000. And I'm thinking, holy crap, like I could hold out and I could find an LBZ. Let's say I pay about 30,000 for it. I'm still going to need to put 15 to 20,000 in it to bring it up to the specs that I want to have. Upgrade the cooling, upgrade the turbo, bump the power, all that stuff. And you're going to be looking at dang near 50,000 just for that LBZ that's already got 100,000 miles on it, and it's 20 years old and probably needs, lots of things that dry rot replaced. Or you can go buy brand new. So I'm looking at these heavily discounted 24s, and of course they're not lasting long. When you get those options at 49,000, those trucks aren't even sitting there at that price for a week. And this was more back in January, but that's what really got me really looking at new stuff. Is okay, that's affordable. 49,000 brand new, like that's where they should be, in my opinion, in the 40s. 40 to 50. No truck should be over 50. Anyway, then they announced the 8-speed and everything, and I saw the looks of the 25s and saw the benefits. The other really big one was the Aisin apparently was only capable of like 58% of the rated horsepower torque in a lot of cases, whereas this new 8-speed, they said it's capable of handling all 100% of the rated power in all 8 gears. That's a huge difference. It's not going to defuel and derate it in certain gears in certain scenarios, all the way down to 58% rated power. So with that being said, I was pretty much sold on a 25. I found Mark Dodge down in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They offer these incredible discounts, like 11 to 14% off MSRP. No questions asked. That's what you get. So it makes the purchase price way less than what you're seeing advertised online. So that's it. If you're still here, that's how I came to the decision. Again, haven't lost my mind. I needed a bigger truck. I needed a smoother ride, and let's face it, I've been driving a piece of crap that's probably worn out and ready to go to scrap for most of my life. That's just kind of how I am. I'm wearing these jeans that probably should have been thrown away 2 months ago. But I'm not gonna be able to physically survive the rest of my life if I don't upgrade my ride a little bit. So let's give you a peek. This old girl. Here she is in the shop. She barely fits. And right now I'm doing paint protection film, which is like the most grueling, tedious job that you could ever do, especially by yourself. And just trying to fix, I got a bunch of paint chips on the drive home from people cutting me off in terrible interstates. And so yeah, got all sorts of videos coming out for this thing though. And I hope you'll subscribe and stay tuned, because basically I plan to build this thing into the 2025 or 2026 that everybody wants to build. Going for reliability, good looks, and most importantly, usability or user friendliness, functionality. So that's what we have coming up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully I didn't lose you. Definitely still love the old mechanical stuff, don't get me wrong. But you're going to see why pretty quickly once I start diving into these other videos, just how much more user-friendly this thing's going to be for me in my day-to-day life and my Doomsday Diesel business. So with that, I'll let you guys get back to your day. It's starting to rain here now, so thank God we got this video done before the roof in here got really loud. And let me know what you think in the comments. The other thing I wanted to say is, like, I was really debating, obviously, buying something with emissions and new. That's one thing, but I've always also kind of despised new vehicles just because I think it's like a power status thing that people do, like, or what do they call it? Status symbol, power status, something like that. It's like, I don't want to brag. I definitely don't want to hop on YouTube and be like, hey, look at my new truck. Oh, I'm so cool. I'd rather just enjoy it by myself, to myself, keep it to myself. But you're going to be seeing it when I'm picking parts up. So I didn't want to be like hiding it. And obviously, like I said, I plan on making parts for this thing. And I hope I can improve people's quality of life with some of these parts on the truck, and then some of them are just going to be aesthetic things. But yeah, obviously I'm going to have to let you know that I have a 25 if I'm advertising these parts. So know that all this comes from a good place. There's no bragging, and very thankful to God for giving me all these opportunities in life and setting things up so I can work hard and achieve the things that I have. And yeah, I'm excited to continue this series with you guys and show you everything I have in the works. So with that, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.